Hello. Hello to all of you. The ICC is very happy to organize again a webinar. Before I continue, may I kindly ask you all to switch off your microphone and to close your video, because I don't know how many people we will be in the end, but we had more than 600 registrations. And if you all appear on the screen, it might prevent the presentation of the webinar. I'm very happy that Nik Peachey has accepted our invitation. Just to briefly introduce him, he is Pedagogic Director of Peachey Publications and writes and publishes wonderful online English language lessons on contemporary issues, often not fully covered in hard copy textbooks. He presented the idea of developing materials for the remote and hybrid classroom in his ICC webinar in December 2021. And today, he's addressing another important topic, ChatGPT for the language classroom. He also offers a course on using ChatGPT on his website. And just to add, Nik has been honored twice for his work in English language teaching materials production, receiving 2 Eltons Award from the British Council. And if you don't know, the Eltons are the language teaching equivalent of Hollywood's Oscars. So Nik, over to you, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. An interesting one, the comparison, comparing the Innovations Awards to the Oscars. I'm actually not sure if they're happening this year. I haven't seen anything about them yet. Usually they're announced, they're taking applications by now. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see that, okay? I'm going to tempt fate by apologizing for a couple of things in advance. Oh, there are 53 people in the waiting room still. If anyone's got access to the waiting room to let them in, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Okay, great, good. Okay, so I'm going to start with an apology to the people who are stuck in the waiting room. I can't let you in, but also I checked ChatGPT just before I started this session, and there are a couple of glitches on it, and it wasn't working. I have managed to log in now, but it is my intention to show some live interaction. And sorry, I'm having trouble with the chat as well. Some live interaction. And okay, I can contact you from chat. Please, during the session, don't contact me directly through chat, because it means that I have to change my messaging for everyone each time. Anyway, yeah, so there were some problems with ChatGPT earlier. Hopefully it is working now, because I do want to sort of share some and do some live demonstrations for you and see if that's working. I'm just sorting it. Yeah, I've got my chat sorted out now. Okay. Another apology is that I've got a bit of a cold, so I might start coughing partway through this seminar as well. The third thing I won't apologise for is just a fact of life. I'm in black and white today, and I'm in black and white because I prefer to be in black and white. I look a bit pink otherwise, and my vanity won't let me be pink. There's a couple of people complaining about sound. Are you able to hear? Can you type in a yes if you're able to hear? Okay, so if everybody's saying yes and they're able to hear, then it's probably a local problem if you're not getting sound, although you won't be able to hear me saying that if you haven't got sound. Okay. Okay, well, we're close to 200 now, so let's get started. So this session is on ChatGPT for the language classroom. I had an introduction there anyway, but for those of you who were stuck in the waiting room at that time, I'm Nik Peachey. I'm Pedagogical Director of Peachey Publications, which is my own independent publishing company where I publish my own work and the work of other authors sometimes and other writers. It's digital work, and I hope it's innovative, new digital work that sort of takes full advantage of what digital has to offer us. I've won 2 Innovations Awards. There they are, just sort of zooming on the screen. And I've been shortlisted 6 times. And I've recently published a book here on ChatGPT in the language classroom, which you can get free if you do my course on ChatGPT in the language classroom as well. So there's a couple of plugs for my products. At the end of this session, I'll give you a link to the presentation, which is interactive, and you'll be able to pick up all of the links from the presentation and go through them later if you want to. So don't worry too much if you're not picking up links or picking up the prompts that I'll show you. You can get those later. And when you get them, you can go through my different social media offerings here. I share a lot of stuff for free on social media. So if you want to check that out, you can. And there's a link here to the book and to find out more about the course if you're interested at the end, if this kind of inspires you to dig more deeply into ChatGPT. Anyway, that's it for kind of the talking about me bit. I mean, the first thing, we're going to look at ChatGPT. First, I've got a question for you. If you can type your answer into chat, have you used ChatGPT to either produce materials for your classes or with your students? Can you type in a yes, I have, or no, I haven't, depending on whether you have? Okay, those are going by pretty quickly, but I'm guessing it looks about 50-50 of yeses and nos. Okay, that's fine, that's good. Hopefully, if you've already used it, there'll still be something new here for you. And if not,
You're mute now, we don't hear you.
okay, can you hear again now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I guess, Nick, fine.
Great, good. Okay, I don't know why that happened, but it did. So going back in history a bit, my first encounter with AI or artificial intelligence was working with a chatbot around the time of, I think it was around 2001, 2002. So it was about 20 years ago. So AI had been around quite a while even then. So it isn't something absolutely new. There have been some big changes and some developments recently, but we'll sort of go into that in a while. But my first encounter with it was around the time that Steven Spielberg produced the film Artificial Intelligence. And it was a very interesting movie. It was based on the story of Pinocchio, who we all know wanted to be a real live boy, but it was set in the future. And in the film, the android boy wanted to be a boy, and real boy, and he wanted his mother to love him. It's a really interesting film if you get the chance to see it, and brings up a lot of the sort of moral, ethical issues around artificial intelligence and robots. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because, at the time, there was a very good website that was produced a lot to promote the film. And on it, there was a chatbot that you could go and chat to. And so at the time I was working in Morocco, and I had teenage students who were very reluctant to speak to each other and communicate with each other in English. So what I got them to do was, rather than going to a chat room, which I thought was potentially sort of dangerous because you never know who they're going to meet, I got them to chat to the chatbot. And they, at the time, they didn't know it was a chatbot, and they thought of lots of questions to ask it and started asking it questions. And I found it really interesting because what I found from the their work with the chatbot was that they were really impressed because whatever they asked it, it would answer them. And I found that the conversations that they were having with the chatbot were much better than a lot of the ones that, you know, I'd seen people have with other real people in chat rooms, which often tended to be kind of, hi, how you doing? Yeah, I'm okay, how are you? Kind of thing, or what's up, dude, or something like that. And so they were really sort of, you know, able to develop their fluency a bit and ask sort of really interesting questions and get very interesting answers. At the time, though, the problem with the chatbot that they soon discovered was that it couldn't follow a thread of a conversation. You could ask it a question and it would answer and respond, but if you referred back to something earlier in the conversation, it was totally lost. And in a way, this is just one of the ways that, you know, our modern chatbots and ChatGPT have made it this huge leap forward, in that it kind of follows the conversation as you work through it. So you can have very long conversations with it and sort of go backwards and reference backwards as you would in a very kind of normal way. So that's sort of one of the big differences. It can also instigate responses from people as well, and will instigate a conversation, and it can respond very spontaneously. And I guess one of the other really interesting things that I found with it is that it can be programmed to do specific tasks. So if you learn how to prompt it, you can get it to take on different roles, a little bit like, you know, creating your own app through ChatGPT. So those are kind of some of the big developments. If you're interested in the technology behind it, there are a couple of little videos here. One on what is ChatGPT, which you can watch later. There's a little narrator here, and she's produced using artificial intelligence as well. I built her to sort of read the scripts of my videos for me so that I didn't have to do them. She'll tell you a little bit about ChatGPT, and if you want to know sort of the basis of it, sort of machine learning and how it works, you can sort of also watch this video. So catch up on those later. Let's get to the sort of more practical side of it. Just for those of you who haven't seen it before, there's a quick look at the interface here. And this infographic is interactive. So if you click on the different parts of it when you get this, you can see what the different parts do. So there's a history of your interaction with ChatGPT. The main part is here. You can see that I've asked it a question, and here's ChatGPT's responses. You can also edit your questions, which sometimes you need to do if it doesn't give you the response you expect. And you can sort of send ChatGPT OpenAI feedback as well. So I'll grab a link to that infographic. And so if you want to sort of check it out later, then there it is for you. Still got some weird things going on with my chat, but there you go. Okay, just close that down. Okay, so it's worth checking out those different features of the interface, because they can do some sort of quite interesting things. And it's easy just to get into that mode of ask a question, look at the answer, ask a question, look at the answer. And there is actually much more you can do. One of the other things that you can do with ChatGPT that is really nice, particularly if you're giving students access, is they can actually speak to it as well. And I've put links in here to 3 different Chrome apps that you can use, that you can download for free. And if you install one of them, then you can start to interact with ChatGPT using your voice, and you'll be able to listen to its replies. I'm not going to demo that at the moment because I don't want to sort of break the circuit with with Zoom, but you can do that. And this is kind of what it looks like in action. You can see that actually I've asked it, the interface is at the bottom here, and I've set it up to speak. And what I asked it to do was give me feedback on my pronunciation. And then you can see that it replied, and then I read a short text to it. The text is an interesting one because it includes all of the sounds of English pronunciation. So it's a nice way to sort of test your students' abilities to pronounce.
Sorry, Nick, do you mind going back to the previous slide? Thanks.
Which one?
The previous one, when you showed the plugins.
You can get the presentation later, so you don't really need to check those out now. Pick up the link to the presentation later and you'll be able to follow all those. Yeah. Sure. So this is kind of basically the feedback that ChatGPT gave me on my pronunciation. So, you know, it can act as a speaking partner and a pronunciation teacher as well, and students can practice their speaking and get a response. Okay, so let's look at some sort of more practical applications here, and we'll start a demo. And one of the things that it is kind of nice for is if you want to create songs for your students. And of course, you can get it to create songs for you that include specific language or specific language points, which is very nice. You can get it either, you know, using this first prompt, you can just get it to write a song, and you can give it any topic, it'll come up with a set of lyrics. So you can write a song and include a specific language point. And of course, the more detail you give it, the better it will be. So using this prompt, you can sort of define the students and the level of your students, and you can also give it some kind of language point as well. One thing that I found really nice to do, though, if you're producing songs, is to get the lyrics of another song first, and then redesign those lyrics so that the new song that you create fits that tune, and then your students will be able to kind of sing it or hum it in their heads to that tune. And I'll give you a quick demo of that. So I'll just get the lyrics from The Girl from Ipanema. Okay, and again, this is.
Since we have a couple of seconds, Barry has just joined us. Just letting you know, Nick.
Okay. Okay, so just like that, ChatGPT produces the lyrics from The Girl from Ipanema for me. And it looks like somebody's writing on my screen with their phone. And now I can ask it to change them to make it about a different topic. I'm going to ask it to try and keep the same number of syllables in each line, and it's going to produce a song about chocolate for me. Okay, and so I'll try and enlarge that a bit just in case you can't see it that well. So now I have a song about chocolate to the tune of The Girl from Ipanema. And so if I want to use songs in that way and get my students using songs to remember vocabulary that they've learned or to explore a topic, you know, I can actually get it to produce a song to a tune that they know. And if you're into singing in the classroom, you can sing it in the classroom, or they can just hum it in their heads and try to remember it. So that's kind of one example of how you can produce materials for you that are specific for your students. You can do a similar thing with poems. And again, I've supplied the prompts here for you. It could just be write a poem about, or it could be write a poem and include these words. So if you want your students to practice a particular lexical set, then ChatGPT will drop them into a poem for you. Or you can sort of even ask for the style of a specific poet. I'll give that one a try now, and we'll go to ChatGPT. I'll create a new chat. I'll paste in this prompt and I'll just edit it. If I just edit that. So again, I'll go for, oh, hang on. Zoom keeps grabbing back my cursor. So I'm going to get a ChatGPT to write me a poem about social media in the style of Shakespeare. And let's see, so this will give us some idea of what Shakespeare might have thought about social media. Let's see if it's working. Okay, and there it is, lightning quick. I have my Shakespeare sonnet about social media. Actually, it's not a sonnet, but it's a nice poem anyway. It could have been a sonnet if I'd asked for that. And again, I'd like to think that I could do that myself, but I'm sure I couldn't do that as quickly. And so if you want to sort of put a different angle on something, so for example, you're having a discussion of social media with your students, what would Shakespeare have thought of it? Well, here's a quick sort of in the style of Shakespeare poem for them to look at. So as you can see, there's a lot of ways to kind of explore this and to explore these things that are very new and very novel. Stories, the same thing. You can get, often we get students to write stories, and that's really useful. But often, they want to write something, but they don't know what to write. So again, there's a prompt here where you can create a plot outline. So this gets ChatGPT to produce the outline for your students, and then they can write the actual story based on that outline. So it becomes a combination of a reading and writing lesson. Plays as well, it's great to get students doing drama, but it can be very expensive to buy a drama script, and very difficult and time consuming to write your own. But with ChatGPT, you can get it to produce a play for you in just a few moments, and you can sort of select the topic using this prompt here, or if you want something a bit more specialized. For example, if you're studying a specific book, this one can get you to, it can write a script based on, one of the chapters of that book, or based based around, it can be based around the characters in that book. It can also go, again, you can get it to write a play in the style of Pinter or in the style of Shakespeare, which again is really nice if you want to do drama with your students. You can sort of make, or you're studying a particular writer, that can make that come alive. So, again, great way to get materials for our students. And of course, one of the more obvious things is that, ChatGPT can produce examples of any kind of written genre. So if you're teaching any kind of written communication, business communication, or teaching how to write emails, or teaching how to write the blurb on a book, it can come up with all of those things for you. And it can sort of do them in either formal or informal styles, which again, enables you to create sort of parallel texts that you can then use for exploration and experimenting with, or analyzing. So I'm just going to, quick example here. My toolbar is always in the wrong. So I'm going to write, I'm going to ask it to write an email. I can get my keyboard to work. Write an email, and then I put in the purpose of the text. Okay, so I wanted to write an email for a bank loan to buy a car in a formal style, because this should be a formal letter. I click on there, wait a few minutes, well, a few seconds. And then there's a very detailed email outlining my application for a loan to buy a car, and very formal. I can then ask ChatGPT to make that informal. Change this to an informal style. And now we've got sort of an informal version of that letter. So, then we can get students to compare those two different versions of the email and look at, what are the differences? How do we achieve formality? How do we write more informally? And again, that's done very quickly, and you could do it with any text. It doesn't have to be that email to the bank manager. Just use the prompt, edit it, and then sort of ask a ChatGPT to change the style. So, a really powerful tool. And those are just a few examples of the ways we can use it to create materials that are specific for our students' needs and, are individualized and it can produce very quickly. Producing materials isn't the only useful part of it. It can also write the lesson plans for us. So again, I've put a prompt here, which is a template for getting it to write a lesson plan for you. So, when you write your prompt, be sure to give it as much information as you can. So you ask it to act as your ESL teacher. You write and you put in the number of minutes, how long you want the plan to be, describe your students and their level, put in what the aim of the lesson should be, and you can also outline the type of approach you want it to take. And this is kind of interesting because it enables you to produce lesson plans that have a different style or a different type of approach if you want to sort of compare or try different things. So I've got an example prompt prepared already. I'm going to start a new chat. I'll type this in here and click on send and see what it has to. See what it can give me. Okay, and there's my lesson plan already. So I've asked for a 60-minute lesson plan on ESL for business English for a B2 level, and I've asked it to use a test-teach test approach. So there it's got my title of my plan, 60 minutes. There's my objectives. They're the materials that I'll need. It's got a little introduction for me about greeting the students. And then it's got the test part there, teach part, discussion there, and finally a test at the end. So there's my whole lesson plan. And it may well not be a perfect lesson plan, and it probably needs a bit of adjustment, but it was done very quickly, and I can very sort of easily adapt that once I've copy pasted it. I can also sort of, for example, it asks for sort of some discussion, and it suggests some discussion and some materials. I can ask it to produce those materials as well. It's saying about presenting the idea. And the next thing I could do, I can ask it to change the approach. So I can. I lost my cursor again. So change this to a guided discovery approach. And then it will change the approach and write the same kind of lesson plan based around the same aims and give me a different way of trying it. So that's kind of nice if you want to sort of try different approaches to your teaching, or particularly if you're a teacher trainer and you want trainees to see different ways they can approach their teaching, and they can compare those and sort of analyze them as well. So that's a bit of a time-saving tool, can help you to plan, maybe give you different ideas about how to approach your lessons if you're feeling a bit stale, and give you the chance to try out different approaches as well. Very quick and easy to do. One of the real powers, I think, and one of the things that really excites me about ChatGPT is what it can actually do for students, and to get students interacting with it and developing language. And there are a number of prompts here that can sort of that you can use to do that. The first one is, it can turn ChatGPT into your student's friend. They can ask it to be a supportive friend. We're always told that, if you want to learn a language, the best way is to have friends in that language that you can use it with. So ChatGPT can become your friend. If you use this prompt and edit it, you can actually decide what type of friend it can be. It can be a very supportive friend, or it can be an angry friend, or a very motivational friend who prompts you to get off your ass and do stuff. And so you can sort of define the kind of advice it should give you. Anyway, I've got an example prompt here, and I'll put this in, and then I can start talking to it. I'm going to start a new chat. You should always start a new chat with a new subject. So I've asked it to be a kind of very supportive friend and give me advice. Of course, I'm here to be supportive. Feel free to share what's happening in your life. So I'll share something with it and see how supportive it is. There you go. So there's my moan for the day, complaining about ChatGPT going down just before my presentation. And there it is. It's being, you've got this. Take a deep breath, stay focused, and trust your abilities. I'll do that. Remember, you've prepared for this presentation and your hard work will pay off. Stay confident. Yeah. Thank you very much, ChatGPT. I feel much better now. But that's an example of how kind of ChatGPT can become your kind of student's friend. Now, it can also become a teacher. So again, if your students want to, if they're used to working autonomously and independently, and you want them to sort of try and sort of do their own homework and become more autonomous, you can give them this prompt, which will turn ChatGPT into a teacher that will set them homework. Okay, so I'm asking ChatGPT to act as my teacher now. I'll wait and make sure it responds. It says, yeah, I'm ready. Oh, so now I just need to tell it what I want to learn about. So tonight I want to learn about collocations. I want to learn about collocations. Okay, so what's it going to do for me? Okay, so now it's designing me some homework activities that I can do. Okay, so there's 4 or 5 activities it's created. Great. It's given me a little bit of information about collocations, and now first activity is matching the different parts. So I've got a matching exercise between these two, and then example responses. And fill in the blanks activity, and it's given me the responses there. Sentence completion. It's given me the responses to all these. It doesn't always do that. And if I edit my prompt and reset it, it might actually do it differently. So I'm just going to resave that and see what it produces the second time. Because usually it will set you some tasks to do, and then once you're finished, you submit the task back to ChatGPT and it answers them. And that's what it's done this time. It's sort of given me 3 activities, and it hasn't given me the answers, so I have to do them, and then I submit them back to ChatGPT, and it corrects them. So that's a kind of way that it can become my teacher. And then once I've done that, I just have to ask about the next thing I want to learn about. So it can become a teacher, it can become a role play partner as well, you know. So if I want my students to practice a specific role play, I just have to give them a prompt. This one's about, you know, it becomes an interviewer, and I can sort of define what job it is, and it will then interview me for that job. So just by typing this in, I can never get my toolbars in the right place on Zoom. So if I copy this place and paste this and edit the job title part, it will come up with the job interview questions for me. I won't demonstrate all of these. The other thing that it can do, which is interesting, it can help you solve problems. So this problem outlines the steps that you need to take in solving a problem. So something like this would be good for business students. And that's quite a long prompt. So you tell it what field you work in, and it will help you solve the problem. So I'm going to just quickly try that one. So for example, if you had some business students, you could use this. I'm going to get a new chat, put the prompt in, just edit. So it says field of work. Let's say I work in marketing. So I work in marketing, I need your assistance with a problem. And then I've laid out the steps that I want it to take in solving my problem in my prompt. Okay, and then I can just click enter. Okay. Of course, I'm here to assist you with your marketing problem. Please provide me with the relevant details. We'll go through the steps you've outlined and find a solution. I need to sell more toothpaste. Okay, so I need to sell more toothpaste. Okay. And then it starts to ask me questions. There's a whole bunch of questions that it wants to answer in order to help to sort of give me clear answers. So your student, like a business student, could interact with this. You know, they're developing their reading, they're developing their vocabulary, and you know they're sort of thinking about the kind of things that they need to solve that problem. You know, and you put all of that information in, and it works through the student through the steps in solving that problem, which I think is sort of, you know, quite an interesting process, quite a good process for us to take as teachers as well if we have problems, and to help students with problem solving. I think that's really good, and that's one of the things that I often hear people criticizing AI and things like ChatGPT about, saying that, you know, what's going to happen with students' critical thinking skills? Well, actually, some quite good things could happen with students' critical thinking skills if we use these kinds of prompts to help take them through this sort of problem-solving thinking process. And you know, I think that's quite important. The last thing I'll show you from ChatGPT is a prompt that can help, that can turn ChatGPT into a Socratic mentor. So, you know, Socratic mentoring is this process of asking questions in order to develop your knowledge of something. And again, I've got quite a long prompt here, which you can pick up later. And I just need to to edit it and add a topic, and it will turn ChatGPT into my Socratic mentor. So again, I'm going to start a new chat. And then I enter the topic that I want to know more about. We'll go for collocation again. So for example, if I'm not sure what collocation is and I need some help with that, and then ChatGPT becomes my mentor. Okay, so, and it develops my knowledge through asking me questions, and then when I answer, it gives me more information. So to start the exploration, could you provide an example of a collocation you're familiar with? I'll say, so take medicine, that's an example of a collocation. Let's see what it says now. Excellent, it's a collocation. Can you think of any specific reasons why we use the verb take with the noun medicine instead of using a different verb? No, it's just like that. That's a good observation. And okay, it's starting to develop my knowledge again. Collocation often becomes established. Okay, so it's telling me how collocations become established. And it asked me another question. Can I think of a collocation related to cooking? Yeah. Okay, so I can continue on this like this, and I have this conversation with ChatGPT. It asks me questions, and it builds on the knowledge that I already have, you know. And I think that's a kind of really remarkable thing for AI to be able to do. And again, you know, we come back to this issue of critical thinking and developing critical thinking, and it's helping us through that kind of process, I think, which is really great. So those are a few examples of how we can sort of get, you know, can use ChatGPT both to produce materials, produce lesson plans, you know, to develop our students and to develop our own ability. A few things that are quite important, you know, if you really want to get value from ChatGPT, is learning how to prompt it well. Prompts are basically that bit of text that you put in to ask it a question. You know, it's very easy to fall into that rut of just asking and answering questions. But if you think your prompts out well, you can get very good quality content from it. If you don't think of them out well, you get something that's generic and kind of mediocre. And these are the things that you should include. So make sure the context is clear. Tell it what the context is. You know, state the topic. Tell it what structure you want it in, whether you want it as an email or whether you want it in a table. You can even sort of give it examples of formatting and tell it what you don't want as well, because often ChatGPT gives you a lot of stuff that you don't want. So for example, you know, this would be an example prompt. Please read my text, suggest ways I can improve it. Well, you know, you would get some generic advice on how to improve your text if you gave it that. But if you want to get good quality feedback, you know, use a prompt like this. Please read my text. Tell it what type of text it is. Is it a poem or is it an email? Tell it what it's about. Tell it who you're writing it for, who's the audience, and tell it what kind of feedback you want, you know. How would you like to improve it? And at the end, my constraint is if you understand, then reply with "I'm ready." Often ChatGPT does this sort of long text about "I'm a language model and I can only do this and I can't do this or I can't do that." But if you actually tell it to reply "I'm ready," then it'll go straight into it and you can just add your text. So it's kind of, I think it's very important that you get your prompting right and that you prompt well. A few issues that have come up with ChatGPT, and I think the most common criticism that I've heard about it, apart from the cheating one, getting students cheating, is, you know, what if it's not correct? You know, I went to do some research for my assignment, and you know, it gave me some examples of sources that didn't really exist. Well, the thing is, a lot of people treat ChatGPT like it's Google, and they go to Google, they put in some search terms, and they get a list of articles that they can refer to in their assignment, whether they've read them or not. But ChatGPT doesn't work like that. ChatGPT is a creative tool, and it can make things up, and that's maybe one of its great powers. So be certain to be aware that what it's giving you is kind of opinions. They're not facts. It's a bit like having a very wise uncle who knows lots of stuff, but will never tell you that he doesn't know. ChatGPT doesn't ever tell you that it doesn't know. It will always make something up if it doesn't know. And it's a bit like that. So some people have compared it to a drunken uncle, actually, but that kind of uncle who will never say they don't know. So if you do want to, if you're thinking of doing research and you want AI help, you'd be better off using a tool called Find. And it's a search engine that combines something like ChatGPT with kind of Google features. So let's tell me about collocation. I'm on the collocation trail today, I'm afraid. And if I search that, and now it will give me information about collocation, but it will also, as you can see, there are sort of numbers here. It will also give me sort of web references that I can research as well. And these little numbers at the end, they correspond to the actual references where it's taken that information. So unlike ChatGPT, which is kind of creating from a language model, it is taking that Find is actually taking little pieces of that text from specific points on the internet. So those are more likely to be factual. But remember, just because it's on the internet and there's a link to it, it doesn't mean that it's factual. We should question everything that we find, particularly on the internet and even in the library. So that's sort of one of those issues. Another one is cheating, and students using it for cheating. And there are tools which suggest that they can detect cheating. GPT-0 is one of them. And I'll put this into the chat. You can give it a try if you want. But, I actually have my doubts about how well these can do it. And if a student has, taken text from ChatGPT and then edited it carefully and adapted it, it would be very easy for them to fool GPT-0. I think what we really need to do, though, is assume in the future that students will be using tools like ChatGPT and to adjust the way we evaluate our students in a way that addresses that. This is a really useful tool for the development of writing and for the development of skills and for life skills. And so we should be teaching students to use it and adjusting the way we assess students to anticipate that they will have used it. And I think that means, rethinking the way we assess students. And personally, I think it's about time. We've been getting students to write essays that, that it's very easy to copy and very easy to forget for, far too many decades now. And I think we need sort of more realistic assessment that assesses real skills and critical thinking. The other issue that comes up for me, I think, is that, if we do that and we assume that in the future, all of our students are going to be using AI tools like ChatGPT when they write something, how do we teach writing? How do we change the way we teach writing? Because, writing isn't, at the sentence level, isn't something that students are going to need to do anymore. They can get ChatGPT to produce grammatically and well-spelled, perfectly spelled text for them. So what do we need to teach them? And I think related to that is, how do we teach them what good writing looks like? Because you can get ChatGPT to produce something that is grammatically correct, well-structured, well-spelled. But that doesn't mean that it's a good piece of writing. A lot of the time it's very generic or very dull. So what does good writing look like? And I think that's another interesting thing that we need to address. There's an interesting article here from a university professor in the US who's suggesting something called the SPACE framework, which is kind of an approach to teaching students how to write, but assuming that they will use ChatGPT as part of that process. And I think that's quite interesting and well worth having a look at if you have time. I'm running kind of short on time, and I'd like to have some time for questions. But I have included a few AI tools here that you can check out later once you get the presentation. This one is Open Assistant, and this is kind of like an open source version of ChatGPT. It's free and can be accessed from anywhere, so that's quite kind of a useful one, especially if ChatGPT is closed in your country. There's another one here called Gamma, which is great for producing, instantly producing presentations. I'll see if I can find my example of this for you. I got it to produce a presentation for me on changing mindset. And this is the presentation it produced. It's an online presentation, and each of these is the slides. It came up with all of the text, all of the images, formatted it all, put it into a design, and that was ready for me to use in less than 3 minutes. So in less than 3 minutes, I had this kind of presentation, which I could then sort of take into the classroom and or the online or physical classroom and use with my students. So that's a really useful tool, and one that maybe you can try out if you get once you get the presentation. There's another one, nice one here, where you can get students chatting with either historical figures or celebrities or even cartoon figures. They can have a chat with Super Mario if they want to, and it answers their questions. And a tool for creating audio, if you want to create audio for your students to listen to, you just type in the text, it produces an audio that sounds real for you. You can check out the example that I've added here. And all of those tools and the suggestions for how to use them, they're all part of the course that I designed for ChatGPT in the language classroom. So if you're interested in doing the course, you can get more information about it here. If you complete the course, you get the book for free as well. And there are about 50 lessons, and we explore different ways of using ChatGPT and some of those AI tools. There's also a community as part of it, so you join a community of other teachers, you can share ideas, there's access to an AI tools library as well, and an AI tools prompt. So, if you feel inspired and you want to learn more and you haven't got enough from this presentation, by all means log on to the course and join the other teachers there and see what more you can learn. Excuse me. Okay, that's as much as I think I have to say for now anyway. I'll share the link to the presentation in chat. So if you want to sort of get all of the presentation and the interactions and the prompts from it, but I've just put the presentation link in there. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Thank you very much, Nick, for the wonderful presentation. I'll hand it over to Barry. I know that
Thank you.
Barry?
Hi, Nick. Sorry to be late. I had a crisis that I had to deal with and didn't get on till a bit later. Tremendous presentation. Thank you very much. Can I lead off with one question, which is concerning the university I know quite well. Worried about its students writing their examination essays using ChatGPT and insisting, therefore, that they have to do their own surveys, i.e. person-to-person interviews and things like that, in order to make sure that ChatGPT cannot provide the answer. How do you react to that?
I think that's a good idea, and that's quite a good start. I think You know, if somebody can just put your exam question or your assignment question into ChatGPT and get an answer from it straight away, then it's not a very good question. You know, I think, you know, we should be looking at ways that, you know, especially, you know, I can remember sort of students doing MA research that, you know, if you're doing an MA or you're doing some kind of assignment, it should involve some kind of research, you know, and that should be real research, not just literature research, not just telling you what 10 other people have said. You know, I think it should be, you know, get on and do something, you know, and I think to have an interview from someone, you know, that's a good way of doing it. And, you know, I think we need to think about much more realistic ways of assessing what is, you know, real skill, not just the process of putting together sentences and paragraphs into something that's, you know, formally correct. You know, we need to go further than that. And I think that's great. That's a step towards it.
Okay, I'm not sure, just one more thing then. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, or maybe some of our university teachers are aware of this. If I do produce an essay on a subject and I've used ChatGPT and I submit it, can it be picked up by Turnitin or would it not?
It depends, you know. I think it depends on how long your assignment is. So say, for example, that you had to produce a 4,000 word assignment and you went to ChatGPT. If you just sort of put in your title and got it to write you an assignment, it wouldn't write you 4,000 words. It would stop after about 400. So what you'd have to do to get ChatGPT to write that assignment for you is you'd need to have the knowledge to break that down into blocks and ask for the individual blocks and get sort of almost put it together paragraph by paragraph. Probably Turnitin or something similar could detect that if you didn't do any editing or alteration to it. But with some basic editing and alteration, you know, you could fool most of the kind of ChatGPT detectors. But the thing is that to produce that in that way, you probably would need the knowledge that it takes you to write it. So in a way, you're just kind of saving time within that process. And you're making, you know, what you're eventually producing has a level of your knowledge within it, or at least, you know, theoretically.
Okay, that's tremendous, Nick. Thank you very much for that. Yellen Megarthia has a question. Yellen, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I can see her hand up.
Yeah. Can you unmute? There we are. Good. We can't hear you.
How about that one? Did you hear me
Oh,
now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to ask if ever I would be having the ChatGPT paid, if ever I would be running the result or the answer to an AI that checks if it's run by an AI, would that be affected or would that be resolved for copyright?
I'm not sure I understood the question. I think there are sort of two parts of that question. I think, you know, in terms of, you know, using things like ChatGPT to produce text, anything you produce through ChatGPT, you then own the copyright for it, becomes yours. Because what ChatGPT doesn't do is it doesn't go to Google and just grab something that it's found there and show you that text. What it does is it searches through everything it can find online with reference to that and produces something that's unique in response to your prompt. You know, if you ask it the same question twice, you'll probably get very different answers or even slightly different answers, but it's recreating something new every time. So with ChatGPT, you're not violating anybody's copyright. In terms of, you know, AI detection of ChatGPT, which I thought was the other part of the question, I think, you know, AI tools say that they can detect quite a lot of ChatGPT or quite a lot of AI produced text, but they only claim to be about 70 to 80% efficient. They can detect things that they can have false detections that haven't been written by ChatGPT, and and I think the real problem is actually redesigning the way we create assignments so that they can't just be simply answered by typing an essay assignment into ChatGPT. Lots of people with hands up now. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
have,
sir, thank you.
we have a question from Cal Bradbury-Starvell. Cal, would you like to unmute?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I
fine.
can hear you.
Lovely, thanks for the presentation, really informative and interesting. I'm interested in the implications of models like ChatGPT and other AI programs for editing. Are there any AI tools that can be used for editing without just copying, vast swathes of text into Word? Are there any things you can use as add-ons to Microsoft Word or things like that?
Yeah, I think Microsoft Word does have a plugin that it's starting to release, which is kind of like an editing tool that it helps you to co-write with it. You can use ChatGPT and, like you said, copy in a big chunk of text and ask for feedback on it, which isn't such a bad thing to do. Especially if you're very specific about the way you prompt, you can probably get some advice on how to augment it and how to improve it. But there are lots and lots of tools now. I think there's a plugin for Google has a plugin for Google Docs, and there are all kinds of sort of independent plugins for sort of co-editing and co-creating text, and that's something that's going to be booming over the next few months, I guess. A quick Google search will probably come up with something.
Okay, do we have another question? I can't see one online. Any hands up? Not at the moment. Right. If there's nothing more coming up, then what I'll do, if I may, is, Nik, thank you very, very much for that. That was tremendous and reassuring at the same time. And maybe we should be beginning to think about how we run the end of the session. And Eleanor, are you handling that?
Yeah, also from my side, thank you very much, Nik. That was
Thank you.
extremely interesting. We have done the recording. It will be available within the next days on the ICC website. And maybe we can have you again with another, further going into ChatGPT use in the classroom. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you who have been listening. Have a nice evening or afternoon, and see you next time with the next webinar in August. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you for listening, and I hope it's useful, and sign up for the course.